0802 local time, Arabian Sea, February 3rd, 2026. The drone is already dead. The Iranian operator who launched it, sitting at a console on Iran's southern coast, has no idea yet, no warning tone, no signal loss, no radar contact on the intercepting aircraft. The Shahed 139 is 500 nautical miles from USS Abraham Lincoln, and it is already a fireball. The carrier never scrambled a phalanx, never activated CRAM, never fired a single defensive round because the carrier's defense was already done, 500 miles from the ship, by an aircraft Iran never detected. 22 days later, Donald Trump confirms it. Iran fired 101 missiles at USS Abraham Lincoln in a single engagement window, every one of them knocked down at sea. The carrier launched strike aircraft against Iran the same day. Iran's drone footage of the Lincoln burning went viral. Millions of views, screenshots shared as proof that Iran had hurt the carrier. Per PolitiFact, that footage was Arma 3, a video game. Iran's drones never filmed the carrier, not once, because they never reached it. Here is the architecture that stopped every single one, and why it begins 500 miles from the ship you think it protects, what Iran built, and why it failed. Most people picture carrier defense the wrong way. They imagine the carrier at the center, rings radiating outward, destroyers at 10 miles, Aegis missiles at 50, phalanx and CRAM at close range as the final line. The carrier as a protected core surrounded by concentric defensive layers. That picture is wrong. USS Abraham Lincoln arrived in CENTCOM's area of responsibility on January 26, 2026. Aboard it, Carrier Air Wing 9. 44 aircraft across 9 squadrons, the F/A-18E/F Super Hornets of Strike Fighter Squadron 41, the Black Aces, Strike Fighter Squadron 14, the Top Hatters, the EA-18G Growlers of Electronic Attack Squadron 133, and 10 F-35C Lightning IIs belonging to Marine Fighter Attack Squadron 314, the Black Knights, the first F-35C deployment to CENTCOM in the history of the aircraft. Iran's military planners had been wargaming this engagement since the 1980s tanker war. They knew the Lincoln was coming. They tracked its departure from San Diego in November. They built their entire drone campaign around one specific assumption about where the carrier's defensive perimeter ended. That assumption was wrong by several hundred nautical miles. Shahed 136, $20,000, one-way attack drone, radar cross-section the size of a large bird, designed to fly below the radar horizon of surface ships, low and slow, skimming under the sensor floor of the destroyer screen. The tactic, saturate with volume. Send 50, send 100, a 90% intercept rate still means 5 drones reach the target. Iran had already used this math against the destroyer screen in the Red Sea. It worked. Destroyer magazines were depleting. A $2 million standard missile to kill a $20,000 drone. The cost exchange ratio was running against the United States. Iran's calculation was simple. Apply the same math to the carrier. What that calculation missed, Carrier Air Wing 9's outermost defensive layer was not a destroyer, not a missile system, not a radar array. It was an F-35C that Iran could not detect, could not track, and could not jam. The outer layer. The F-35C Lightning II has a combat radius on internal fuel of over 600 nautical miles. That one number rewrites the geometry of carrier defense entirely. A Super Hornet launches from USS Abraham Lincoln. Combat radius on internal fuel, roughly 390 nautical miles, already deep into the planning assumptions of any opponent. An F-35C launches from the same catapult, same ship, and the intercept radius extends past 600 nautical miles. The outermost line at which an inbound threat can first be engaged is now 600 nautical miles from the ship. No radar emissions from the F-35C. The AN/A PG-81 AESA radar operates in a low probability of intercept mode. It detects without broadcasting. The distributed aperture system runs entirely passively. The full sensor picture the F-35C builds, altitude, bearing, closure rate on every track and range, transmits silently via multifunction advanced data link to every U.S. asset in the theater. Iran's radar operators never saw a return, never heard an emission, never had a warning. February 3rd, the Shahed 1399 launched from Iran's southern coast on a bearing toward USS Abraham Lincoln. The Iranian launch crew believed they were invisible at this range. The drone had made similar reconnaissance runs before. It had returned with imagery every time. A single F-35C from VMFA 314 was already airborne, already had the track, already had the targeting solution. 1 AM 9X Sidewinder. The drone's last data transmission was a navigation update, then nothing. The Iranian launch crew received no signal telling them what happened to their aircraft, no radar return on the intercepting aircraft, no warning at all. The Shahed 139 simply ceased to exist at a range the carrier's phalanx CIWS and CRAM systems were never engineered to engage. First look, first kill. Before Iran knew the engagement had started, that was the first confirmed F-35C combat shootdown of an Iranian drone. It would not be the last. The system behind the system. The F-35C doesn't work alone. Before any F-35C launched that morning, an E-2D Advanced Hawkeye was already airborne above the strike group. The carrier's flying radar, climbing to altitude, its AN/APY-9 UHF band radar scanning outward across hundreds of kilometers in every direction. The AN/APY-9 was specifically engineered to defeat the exact target profile Iran was using. Low altitude, slow-moving, small radar cross-section. The parameters the Shahed uses to hide from surface ship radar are the parameters the E-2D was built to see through. The Hawkeye caught the inbound track hundreds of kilometers from the carrier, built the intercept geometry, passed it to the F-35C through Link 16. The F-35C executed on a targeting picture it received, not one it built itself. That is decision time. Iran's swarm doctrine assumes the defender is reacting, building a track picture in real time as threats enter defensive airspace. That assumption gives the attacker volume advantage, the window before full situational awareness is established. The E-2D means the defender already knows. The intercept is not a scramble. It's a scheduled execution at a time and location calculated before the threat crossed the horizon. March 7th, a VAQ-133 Growler launches from USS Abraham Lincoln carrying both the AN/ALQ-99 and the AN/ALQ-249 next-generation jammer mid-band pods, both simultaneously. The NGJ-MB is not a software upgrade to the ALQ-99. It is a different weapon class entirely, software-defined, frequency adaptive, able to target bands the older system cannot reach. Iran's Shahed drones use GPS satellite uplink for command and control. The NGJ-MB targets those frequencies specifically, not randomly, precisely. The drone's GPS lock degrades. The command link drops. A Shahed with degraded GPS and no command link does not attack the target it was aimed at. It wanders. It falls. It follows the last heading it was certain of, which is no longer toward the carrier. The Growler does not shoot the drone. It removes the drone's ability to find the ship. Now, run all three simultaneously and look at what Iran's drone operators were actually facing. The E-2D sees the launch hundreds of kilometers from the carrier, builds the intercept track before the drone has flown 50 miles. The Growler targets the drone's navigation and command frequencies, degrading its ability to reach the correct bearing. The F-35C executes the intercept at 500+ nautical miles from the ship, invisible to every Iranian air defense asset in the theater. Anything that survives all three faces, the Super Hornets of VFA-41 and VFA-14, pre-assigned intercept geometries already loaded from the E-2D's track picture, AIM-120AMRA-AMS at medium range, AIM-9X at close range, and behind them, the Aegis destroyers, and behind them, terminal systems the carrier has never had to activate in this campaign. March 23rd, March 24th, Iran fires 101 missiles at USS Abraham Lincoln. Trump confirms it. Of 101 missiles shot at the USS Abraham Lincoln, every single one of them was knocked down on the sea. Not one got through. The carrier launched strike aircraft against Iran that same day. The video went viral on March 1st. USS Abraham Lincoln flight deck, fire, black smoke. Iranian state media distributed it, millions of views, screen grabbed, commentary, proof the carrier had been struck, proof Iran's campaign was working. Per PolitiFact, March 1st, 2026, pants on fire. The most widely shared clip was traced to a June 2025 post from a different conflict entirely. Portions of the footage matched Arma 3 video game renders. There is one specific reason Iran's drone footage never showed the Lincoln. Iran's drones never saw the Lincoln. Not at the edge of visual range, not at the limit of their camera optics, not at any point during 3 weeks of sustained campaign. The F-35Cs and Super Hornets of Carrier Air Wing 9 intercepted every Iranian drone before it reached an altitude and range from which it could image the ship. Iran's IRGC wanted footage of a burning U.S. carrier. The drones sent to get that footage were destroyed by aircraft 300 miles from the ship they were supposed to film. The carrier was never the target Iran's drones could reach. It was only the target they were aimed at. The cost and what comes next. Day 22. CENTCOM confirms more than 10,000 American military personnel, over a dozen naval vessels, upwards of 100 aircraft actively enforcing the U.S. blockade of Iran. The architecture that stopped the drones is not free. Per Hudson Institute analyst Brian Clark, USS Abraham Lincoln and USS Gerald R. Ford are both facing maintenance periods delayed by extended combat deployments. USS Gerald Ford has been deployed over 300 days, longer than any carrier since Vietnam. The cascading delays at Norfolk Naval Shipyard and Puget Sound Naval Shipyard will take months to clear after these deployments end. Every Combat Air Patrol VMFA 314 has flown since February 28th has consumed F-35C airframe hours. The Pratt & Whitney F-135 engine-running combat cycles accumulates wear that peacetime training never imposes at this rate. The 10 F-35Cs aboard USS Abraham Lincoln are the only F-35Cs deployed from any U.S. Navy aircraft carrier in the world right now. Their availability, their mission-capable rate, is not a statistic. It is the margin between a functioning outer defensive layer and a carrier whose outermost ring has shrunk. April 25th, USS George H.W. Bush, CVN-77, spotted operating off Namibia. Carrier Air Wing 7 aboard, heading towards CENTCOM. The Lincoln's relief is already sailing. When the Lincoln is relieved, VMFA 314 rotates home. The Black Knight's airframes enter depot-level inspection. Some will not return to fleet availability immediately. The maintenance pipeline from sustained combat deployment to full mission-capable status takes months. CENTCOM maintains its presence in the Strait. The air wing that defeated Iran's drone doctrine goes home to a maintenance queue. Every Navy on Earth is studying this campaign. Chinese PLA Navy analysts are examining the same question Iranian planners now understand from experience. The carrier's outer layer is the air wing. The J-35 being developed for China's Type 003 Fujian carrier is being evaluated against the F-35C's performance record in this campaign. Chinese naval planners are specifically studying the combination of the E-2D detection timeline and the F-35C intercept geometry, looking for the gap. Iran is looking too. Every engagement data point from this campaign, the intercept range, the Growler's jamming effect on navigation reliability, the E-2D's detection timeline, where the geometry gave the defender the advantage, that is now inside Iran's planning cycle. They will examine what got through, what didn't, at what range the outer layer was most effective, where a revised swarm doctrine might find a seam. The architecture that stopped the drones is already under study by the next adversary. What worked today will be tested harder tomorrow. A Marine F-35C pilot from VMFA 314 is somewhere over the Arabian Sea right now. Combat Air Patrol, altitude and bearing classified, passive sensors running, no radar emission. The distributed aperture system watching every approach vector simultaneously. If something launches from Iran's southern coast on a bearing toward USS Abraham Lincoln, the geometry is already built. The targeting solution is already loading. The carrier will not know the threat existed. Iran fired waves of drones at USS Abraham Lincoln. Iran's drones never saw the carrier. The F-35Cs of the Black Knights saw them first.